fishing for. Sometimes it.
My kids were like,
Then it goes back. I hate it. If I have to
That's
do
gotta be
that,
scary.
I always turn my lights on.
yeah. Hopefully it was no big deal.
I hope.
Motion to agenda. Motion to approve everything.
And close the meeting.
I've never seen.
Okay, are we rolling for our recording and set on YouTube? Okay, all right, then let's go ahead and begin. Welcome to our North Logan City Council for October 20th of 2021. I've asked if Brad Crookston would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and Craig Humphreys offer an opening prayer.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful to be here this night. We're grateful for our community. We're grateful for the freedoms in which we enjoy. We're grateful for this valley, for the seasons in which we can see all the things of thy creation. Pray that we'll be able to make sound decisions this night. The best things for our community. Say these things in the name of Jesus Christ.
Amen.
Thank you, Brad and Craig. You have the agenda before you, and I don't have any changes or updates to it. Would entertain a motion to adopt.
So moved.
Motion from Bruce. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Brad. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, a motion carries. You have several sets of minutes from last council meeting, as including executive session as well as regular session and RDA. Thank you. Are there any changes to those minutes as presented? Hearing none, the minutes will stand adopted. And we'll go to Alan for our follow-up and action items.
Okay, thanks, Mayor. I'm just jumping down through here. We'll talk about this a little bit later. The Civic Center RFPs, those have gone out for request for proposal for the architectural designs, but we'll talk about that as one of the agenda items. Recruitment, compensation, retention. We'll also go over several items in this meeting. Website updates, we're still going through that as well. Jumping down through here though, the water, we're looking at several funding options for all the things that we plan on doing and looking into this winter, including some of the ARPA funds that are available right now, and we're in the competitive process to receive those grants, along with any USDA and other funding options. We're looking into each and every one of these right now and going through that. Jumping down through here, sewer, the back truck's being fixed right now, so we can go out and do some of our end of the year kind of manhole blitzes and things along those lines. Streets, they're wrapping up several things right now. It's been a busy few weeks, to say the least, but they're getting ready for snow plowing and kind of equipping the trucks as we're transitioning from tree removal to snow removal. Jumping down through here, we'll talk about stormwater. Two things tonight, key updates in the stormwater department. Engineering, we did receive the grant for the 1200 East extension, and we've been assigned a UDOT contact for that, and we'll work through that over time. And then we're also working on the sewer trunk line project, which I believe has gone out to bid as well with Logan. That we're working on with them. Obviously, the pumpkin walk, massive collaborative effort of all the departments put that together the past week, which was very successful. Pickleball courts are wrapping up. They've done several of the pours, at least the pouring of the concrete. There's still several other things to put in, but that's exciting. A lot of excitement in the community regarding that. And then wrapping up some of our irrigation as far as winterizing it. Trails, we'll probably meet in the coming weeks with the contractor to look at options for the Bonneville Shoreline Trail. That's one of the key aspects, and we'll go over several portions of that. Recreation, flag football is wrapping up. They have a Halloween parade. They had their superhero camp, and then they're signing up for basketball right now, and that's all a busy time right now in the next few weeks. Facilities, they're fixing the library wall. They're working on several leaks in several of the buildings. It's just an ongoing process there for facilities. Cemetery, we're looking at alternative sources for water, and that department's also looking into weather track to kind of, I'd say, create some more efficiency and the ease of programming up at the cemetery. But yes, we do need to look for another option. And I know that Spencer working with an intern on the Veterans Monument design. Coming on through here, the Community Development Department will have a busy week this week at Planning Commission. They'll have the Smiling H subdivision, which is the property east of the city offices, the former Hogan property. They'll have a concept plan. They'll talk about ingress egress code, the storage unit development code, general plan updates. And there's actually a few other things they'll be looking at in the next couple of weeks, including water meter ordinances and also water conservation, kind of a black and white plan for water conservation for subdivisions. Economic development, we're working with one of the interns right now. They'll be wrapping up and familiarizing themselves with the economic development master plan, updating that, and we're still waiting to hear back on the community reinvestment area from some of the entities who have to sign off on that. Coming down through here, though, we still went through the audit this past week. It's still going on. It was a tough week, going through every last aspect of that. So hats off to the treasurer and also the recorder, and all the other departments had to work on that, including human resources and the accounts payable. Library we'll hear from tonight. We'll go over a few things, but the Harry Potter party is coming up on October 22nd. That's this Friday, which is fantastic. Very large event. I think it's at 6 p.m. if I'm not mistaken. So that'll be fantastic. Police, we're working on several nuisance properties together. Letters went out this week regarding those properties, and so we're working together in that regard. And then hats off to the fire department, and thanks for bringing by the ambulance this evening, the new ambulance. It's fantastic to have that in our community, a brand new ambulance for the residents of the community and the fire staff that respond so quickly in that regard. Those are some very quick updates. I didn't know if there's any other questions.
I have a quick question. Can we get, would it be okay if we added to the updates the number of open positions we have in the city?
The what? The number of open positions? Yeah, we can go through that.
I'd like to know what that is for the next little bit.
Mhm.
And maybe as a percentage of the total staffing as well. So number of open positions and percentage. Is that better?
That's a great idea. Thanks, Bruce. Oh,
I'd like
vacant
number of open
positions.
positions and percentage.
Other questions or items there? All right, let's then step forward to our recognition of exemplary staff members. Tonight, we're in the plural. As you all know, we had an extraordinary storm last week. It varied across the city. I think our average is probably about 8 inches. Some folks reported as much as 11 inches at their homes, others perhaps as few as 5 or 6. But in any event, everyone had more snow than they're used to having on, what was it, about October 12th or 13th, thereabouts, whatever it worked out to be. As a result, we had catastrophic events citywide. with trees coming down, the loss of branches in terms of the volume before it gets chipped and crunched. I think this is bigger than anything we've seen in our previous 2 windstorms in terms of sheer volume of material that came down. From across public works in both parks and streets, we had a significant amount of response. In the first place, we don't usually equip our trucks with with plows in early October. That hasn't historically been a need. We hope that we're grateful for the snow, but we hope that that won't need to be something we continuously need to be prepared for. Notwithstanding the fact we do have a couple of machines that are just dedicated snow plows, and still by 6:20, I think, was about the time one of you drove past my house and honked and waved. Thank you for a cheerful, oh, that's right, it was you, Will, I saw it. In addition to that, all around the city, our staff members were taking phone calls in the morning. They were skipping classes that they were scheduled to be in attendance at, and they came to work earlier than they expected need to come that day, and stayed later than they normally would have been scheduled to work. But they did it to help keep our roads open, to keep the canals clear, so that the storm water can flow. And just doing whatever they could to protect the core transportation infrastructure and the well-being of our residents. And they did that at a point in time where we're understaffed and have a number of vacant positions across all of those departments. And so tonight we're going to recognize a longer list, I think, than perhaps we ever have. But as I read your name, if you'd please stand to be recognized by the City Council. Ryan Campbell from Parks, Jeremy Stedman, also Parks, Grounds Crew, Ben Stedman, Lily Richardson, Sarah Monson, Kendra Cook, and Natasha Gunderson. Chris Yelderman from Facilities, and John Mills from the Water Department. On the street side, we had Colby Law, Chase Argyle, Will Morris from Stormwater, Sean Pratt, Ryan Van Weerd, and Dathan Robinson all contributing as well. So please join me in a round of applause for all of those who worked so hard to respond to this storm. I didn't note that, oh yeah, by the way, we were trying to start the pumpkin walk the next day in all of this. So, you know, I happened to be over there Wednesday evening and watched, you know, one of the backdrops blew over, and a little golf cart full of our employees pulls up, and they start, you know, drilling it up and setting it back in. And if you had been to the park Wednesday morning and thought that there was going to be an event the next day that was going to host 10,000 people, you would have said there was no way that it possibly could have been accomplished. But because of the hard work of our staff, it came off, and it came off exceptionally well. I thought Thursday morning the pumpkin walk was going to be slow and that people were going to be like, I don't want to go over. It was busy. There were a lot of people there right off the bat. And so a huge thanks to our pumpkin walk volunteers, as well as our staff, especially for making that come off. Okay, next we have a library award that we want to recognize. James, would you be willing to come up and share this good news with us?
Thank you, Mayor Can and all of the city council members. I was attending a special training for all of the library directors, all of the public library directors in the state of Utah. We were all attending a training Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday last week in Park City. And I was surprised to receive this award from the state of Utah. And it says, North Logan City Library, in recognition of impactful service during the COVID-19 pandemic, 2021. So the state of Utah and the state library recognized what we had done during the pandemic. We did a lot of innovative things that other libraries didn't do. We bought board games that we let people take home for extended amounts of time and then cleaned them really well when they came back. Board games, video games, even Switch Lite, Nintendo Switch Lite consoles. We had lots of different tutorials on our website and fun activities and fun things for people to do. We tried to be as innovative as we possibly could. And so we were recognized with this award. So I was just so happy, I couldn't believe it. I was just in a good mood for days after receiving this. So I just wanted to present or let all of you know about this.
Thank you very much, James. Last week may go down as one of the best weeks in the history of the library in terms of good things happening.
Yeah.
So well done. Please join me in recognizing the library.
Just a quick plug, we have our Harry Potter party this Friday at 6 o'clock. It's really fun. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, James. Okay, all right. Next up, we're going to go to our public hearing. We have two public hearings this evening. I'll quickly review the rules for public hearings. They will apply to both of the public hearings. You're welcome to speak to either or both of them, but just so folks are aware, our public hearing rules for North Logan City Council. You're invited to come up. You are afforded the opportunity to speak to the council. We encourage you to remember that this is an opportunity to share your thoughts and opinions with the council, but not a time to expect dialogue back and forth between the resident and the council. Your time is limited to 2 minutes, but you may ask the chairperson for more time if you are speaking on behalf of others who are present. If you are hoping to engage in dialogue opportunities with the on a particular issue, we encourage you to reach out to the appropriate elected officials and or staff members to arrange an opportunity where that dialogue can take place. With that, I will go ahead and declare the public, well, actually, Alan, why don't you give us a quick preview, I'm sorry, on the proposed revision to the administrative allocation and for the fiscal year 22. And we may consider authorization after that. So we kick it off and then I'll thump the hammer when it's time to open the public hearing.
Okay, thanks, Mayor. Looking through this, what we have is within the budget of the city, we have an administrative allocation. And what that is it's a transfer within the departments where money is expended out of several of the, if you look down at the bottom of this list, some of the enterprise accounts, water, sewer, stormwater, the RDA, facilities and library. And those monies that come out of those departments go towards covering a lot of the administrative staff and their time and resources. It also goes towards a few of the other departments throughout the city who help out in those departments. And so looking at this, we've looked at some of the different methods that we've done it in the past. What we're looking at is if you look at column G, you're looking at basically a percentage of time in each of those departments that's dedicated to those enterprise accounts I just listed off. So if you look at this, we do have the city council. I'm proposing that we add the city council that at a very small amount. However, 11% of your time would be dedicated to those enterprise accounts. As we look down through there, the one that's a major one is line or row 7. You hit the administrative department. And what that is that's really a lot of the staff in the office that do personnel related items. So we have our HR department and payroll. You have the recorder, and so it covers a lot of this time, the time to prepare the budgets and also the expense reports. Then you have the treasurer who handles all of the billing throughout the city for utilities and everything else associated with those departments. 43% is actually a small number, in my opinion. It's probably more 60, 70, but we want to keep it somewhere in reason. And so the goal of this sheet here is just to show that it would go towards those departments, and then also a few of the other departments that spend a little bit of time. Again, these are probably smaller than they actually spend, but parks, 3.8% of time they're probably more around 8, 9, 10% of their time is spent helping out these other departments in some capacity or some way, shape, or form. And so what I'm proposing here in this sheet is that some of the smaller allocations go towards helping out those other going towards those departments in a small form, those departments that help out in these different departments. I mean, in no small way, you look at even the library. Library has a relatively small administrative allocation. However, the parks and facilities maintain the entire grounds here, the library facility, and then all of the grounds that service library. And so it's a way to cover some of the costs that go across the departments, but it's intended to only cover a small portion of those costs, except for those departments that are handling a large portion. So I went into a lot of detail there, but as you look over, if you have other questions, let me know, and we can get input from the public as well.
The intent here behind the administrative fee behind this administrative allocation is such that we define clearly what our water programs for the city, what it really costs us to deliver, to take the water from our our wells and our sources, our surface water, and deliver it here. And part of those costs, the typical resident wonders why our water rates are so high, I think, to be honest, because it seems that just running water from the top of Green Canyon to their house shouldn't cost a whole lot of money. And that, letting the water run downhill itself doesn't cost us a great deal of money. But we have to have a treatment plant because we deal with surface water. And then on top of that, the actual system and the maintenance of the system, and then the management components of covering the HR, the billing, all of those kinds of things. Those are things we haven't been recovering and that the general fund has been subsidizing. The policy goals of this council for this council particularly and councils before for some time have been to try to find to make sure that the fees for the enterprise funds cover the true cost of delivering the service. And this is just a step in that direction so that those who use more water end up paying for more of those services, and those who aren't using much don't end up having to pay taxes to subsidize the provision of water for those who use more. So I think it's really a core fairness issue from my perspective. From there, let's go ahead and declare the public hearing open to discuss the administrative allocation here for these items. Is there anyone who would like to speak to this issue? Jordan, I thought you were about to get up. I'm like, okay, we'll give you a shot later on, but sorry. All right, I'm going to go ahead and declare that public hearing closed. And we can, I think, if we approve, can we wait? Can we do the second hearing and then consider both of those adjustments in one shot?
I think you can. In this one, as you do approve it, it'll have a condition with it.
Or okay.
As you approve it, it has to be also included in a budget revision that will be upcoming, along with several of the other fees that we've talked about. But this would have to be included in one of our upcoming budget revisions.
Okay, so we could approve this now and then incorporate it into the budget revision subsequently?
Yes, you'd have to have that as a condition of approval.
Gotcha. I think that makes that's a reasonable thing for us to do at this point. So there's clear direction from the council pursuant to making that budget revision. Is there a motion to that effect to approve this administrative fee schedule contingent on its eventual incorporation into a budget revision?
I'll make a motion that we do what Damon said in that last statement, exactly like that.
Okay, there's a motion from Roger.
I just have a quick question for you. So there's no advantage to waiting. There's no new information that's going to come forward. Nothing. There's no reason to wait at all, because it doesn't sound like there's a reason to move forward with it tonight specifically. We don't accomplish anything. And there's not a chance there's going to be more information that comes up.
Other than just modifications to this, if you see any modifications in this that we need to do, but there is an advantage to approving it tonight. We'd start moving forward with some of the things that it helps cover, some of the staff adjustments.
Okay.
And that.
All right.
We can start tracking administrative allocation from tomorrow forward.
Okay.
In this way. So
I'll
there is
second
an
the motion.
advantage. Okay, motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none on opposition, the motion carries. And we'll go forward next to a public hearing on resolutions for feedback on the master fee schedule, including a variety of different fees. Alan, would you take us through just a quick overview of these fees and outline what they would be used for? What the purpose is for the fee increase, and then we will again open the public hearing.
And yes, Mayor, I'll start with the emergency response and communication fee. And we'll look at this fee, and then if it's okay, if Jordan could go through the stormwater fees and then the water tier rates. I don't mean to put Jordan on the spot, and that's your direction, Mayor. how you'd
Please,
like to do
I'd
that.
be very pleased to have Jordan come up and speak to that.
But in looking at this, what we have is an emergency communication charge. And what this is, they call it the dispatch fee currently, but it's emergency communication response fee within our, within our fee structure. What it is $3 per month per door right now, and that is charged to us from Logan City. They administer the dispatch function of the county. As we've been looking into this, this is an opportunity to look at this fee, increase it by $1.50 per month, which will again put a small dent in the cost and services. We're primarily looking at this for the police department to cover some of the funding there, to help bolster up and help in what we've talked about beforehand, the retention, recruitment, the compensation. I don't want to call it a battle, but it really is right now, and to pay our officers fairly, in my opinion. As we go through this, though, this would generate more funds for that. Currently, like I said, though, it's just putting a dent in that cost. Obviously not going to cover a substantial portion of anything. This is a small dent in the ability to at least bolster that up and help in a I'd say a longer range and a more significant issue of continuing to look for ways to help out in the police department and all other departments. But this one in particular is just for the police department. It is dedicated in the line. It cannot go into the general fund and be lost. It has to go dedicated to that public response.
Thanks,
I didn't know
Alan.
if you had anything else to add to that, but if Jordan has
That's
the
perfect.
items for the other.
Jordan, if you'd speak to each of those others, that would be great.
Yep, you bet. So on stormwater, as Will has gone through our stormwater updates for our SWIMP renewal and our new MS4 permit, we went through a lot of our fees and a lot of the costs associated with the stormwater program. So in conjunction with that, our construction activity permit, the application for anybody doing more than an acre of disturbance of soil. Our current fee is $350. We're looking to increase that to $500. What that does is that helps us better cover the costs of the inspections and the paperwork and the electronic notifications that we have to do for that and the state tracking. The stormwater violation fee, this is also, like I mentioned, in conjunction with our stormwater master plan and state regulations. This is a fee that we would assess to contractors that are not adhering to their stormwater management plan or the city stormwater management plans. A lot of times that's pretty self-explanatory. The construction activity permit for less than 1 acre of ground disturbed. In the past, it's been 10% of the building permit fee up to a maximum of $135. That's for a single residential home construction. That fee, we look to increase that to $175 to help, again, better cover the costs of the staff. Both of those, all of these fees, we feel are still below covering the full cost of staff time, but we feel that they are fair and we can work with those numbers. Any questions, comments?
Sure. Let's go ahead and do a public hearing first.
Okay, sorry.
And then we'll come back to questions and discussion from the council.
Okay. So then tiered water rates. If you want it, yep, perfect. So what we've looked at into in regards to all of the costs and cost sharing and what goes into the actual cost of water, like the mayor explained, it's a lot more expensive to bring water into the valley or into our city than than, everybody thinks. So our upper tiers are what we're looking at increasing, tiers 4 through, sorry, that's supposed to be a 9, not a 4 after 8. Tiers 4 through 9. What we've discovered is that those tiers between 60,000 gallons plus, we end up pumping more. We have a lot higher electrical costs in that percentage of water. And the areas that are using that water, we end up pumping twice. So our fees are fairly significant. If you scroll down again, or our costs are significant, sorry. So, and then this would be, again, so the first one is applied to single family residences. This, yeah, sorry, if you want to go back up, I missed that. But this is single family residences, that first tier change. The second tier changes for, if you go back down to water usage for institutional rate. So it's those same set of tiers, but this is charged to institutional, which would be, institutional is churches, government, and stuff like that. So if you go down, there's one more. That's following the same tier structure as before. And then the commercial rate, we're looking at increasing the commercial water rate. The commercial tiers are a lot bigger than residential. One of the things we looked at was the average use, trying to make sure that the low end water user is not at all punished for using the water, that they're getting a great rate. What we're trying to look at is those that are abusing the water system because of the costs involved to produce that excess water, that we're covering our costs on those. On the commercial rates, we compared it across the valley and across the state, and we are still cheaper than the majority of water rates. So,
Jordan, can you talk a little bit about where multifamily falls
Yeah.
into this?
yep. So multifamily, we are not adjusting those rates. So as we did the calculations to compare a multifamily unit's use versus a single family resident, we found that they're still within the average cost. So the cost for a single family versus on the same size of lot and home is very similar to the multifamily unit. And so those are a little more tricky. We did a lot of research to get to those numbers where we're at now, and we don't feel that those need to be adjusted.
Excellent. Thanks. All right, let's go ahead and open the public hearing. If anyone would like to speak to these issues, the public hearing is open. Not being one too long for awkward pauses. Anyone want to come and speak to this? In that case, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing and turn the time over to the council. Council, what questions do you have? Maybe let's work these first on the emergency response fee. Let's take these one by one. Any discussion on that front?
Yeah, I have some questions on that. I thought that we were going to go with a different number.
So here's what I need to discuss on that. The police commission made a motion that they thought that the number should be an increase of $3 per month rather than $1.50 per month. And it is in the purview of this council to do so. My opinion is, so if we were to do this, one of the goals of doing this fee is to address issues that we have in wages. We're on about 13 weeks with nary an application in sight for vacant positions for a police officer. We had one part-timer who was in the academy who we ultimately were able to make an offer to fill one of those vacancies without, it still goes through the vetting process to have been hired as a part-timer, but with the other open position, 13 weeks, no application, and no, don't know what we're going to do to fill that position, honestly. Not to mention the fact that we're observing something that several mayors referred to at the League of Cities and Towns convention as an arms race for funding for police officers. So we're watching agencies around the state increase wages. And we're concerned not only about filling that vacancy, but also issues that we have with retention in the department. We have these issues in a variety of departments and areas of the city, and I think we'll discuss that in the context of the next couple of items. But right now, we're talking about the public safety fee, so I'm speaking specifically to these issues, not to give short shrift to the issues we have elsewhere that we'll discuss momentarily. Logan City, in reaction to this general trend statewide, increased their starting wages to what, $22.50, Chief, or
265.
$22.65 an hour. Our starting wages are at about $19.50, if I remember correctly. 19 even. Chief had a few different ideas, but the police commission just said, you know, what we really need to do is increase wages. And so we came back, and it was part of our compensation committee. We asked Chief Black what we would need to match Logan City, and the amount would be about 119,000. Excellent. 119,000. I almost said 120. So thank you for saving me $1,000, Chief. They're looking out for me. Raising this fee in the way that we have, it's not quite clear exactly what the impact would be, because we don't know exactly what the number of doors is. That's information we've sought from Logan City, but our estimates are that it would probably raise about 60, a minimum of 60, and possibly $70,000 to $80,000 a year. Now, of the 120, North Logan would be responsible for providing about 75%, Hyde Park about 25% based on the allocation, which means North Logan would be looking for something in the neighborhood of 85,000 to match. So the thing that puzzled me, and I raised this issue at the police commission meeting about the request to go to $3, is that if we went to $3, we would raise probably 50 to 70% more money than we need to match Logan's wages for starting officers, and do an accompanying increase for every officer in our department. So we, depending on how things go with the $1.50 increase, we may come close to covering everything that we would need to cover to match. And so I said, you realize that this would give us much more in excess. And they said, a couple of police commissioners said, yes, we do. And my response wanted to be, well, why, do we really need to, are we going to try to beat Logan? Because I think Logan's response is going to be to immediately come back and raise wages to be $1.50 an hour higher than ours. And I don't want to get into the arms race scenario there, so to speak. But that said, I do feel strongly that we really need to be competitive. So with that in mind, I've delivered my thoroughly biased and somewhat cranky for me feelings about that fee. And with that preface, Bruce, please articulate, and Roger, our other police commission members who are just less cranky than I am right now, if you guys would share your thoughts on that issue to make this discussion a little less biased, then please do so.
So in that police commission meeting, as that discussion happened, it was clear to me that the majority of the commission was in favor of raising that rate more than $1.50. There's a possibility that there might generate some excess funds in addition to what we might need to fund the police in the way that we need to fund it. I share the concern about the arms race that you mentioned. However, we're in a crisis situation. You kind of made that point in the beginning. How long did you say it was since we've been at full staff?
It's been months since we've been fully staffed.
How long has it been since we had an applicant?
13 weeks. We've been less than full staff about since June.
Okay, so our situation, it's not normal, and it's not normal. It's probably not going to change anytime soon. And part of what we discussed in the police commission is this fee, which affects household doors, I think, right? by $3 instead of $1.50, we felt like that there's probably not a individual, well, there probably is an individual in North Logan someplace that might have a problem with this, but the vast majority of people are not going to know or care that their rate has gone up by $3, and that would actually go all the way to solving our immediate need. And also, we're probably looking at unforeseen needs we don't even understand yet as this continues to develop. And so I'm disappointed to see that we did not follow through with that, especially since I felt like the police commission was clear that that was the route to go. And I'm very concerned that we're not getting applicants and we have this problem. And I don't want to get into an arm race. This is something we can come back and reverse later if we need to. But I think we need to take the immediate action necessary. And I don't think that that's asking too much to go another $1.50, especially where it takes us all the way.
To be clear, first as a point of clarification, there's nothing going on that would prevent this council from doing $3 an hour tonight if that's what the council would like to do. So the decision has not been made that it's $1.50. That's a council decision. And if that's the direction you guys want to go. My question is, why is $3 all the way? It's way more, like 50%, 75% more than what the chief told us he needed, more than what he asked for. And my second argument is, let's do what we can to solve the immediate issue now, and then work through a proper truth and taxation process later to get any additional revenue that we might need to clean things up from where we're at. But that is my position, but I don't have a vote on the matter. And so I need to calm down and let the council.
Well, two comments I make. Can you use that money for like benefits? Chief, when do we come up on benefits insurance, like the increase? I'm hearing stats out there that most benefits are going to go up 20%. So I don't even think we've weighed that number. I mean, as far as health insurance. So we hire a full-time officer, we offer them health benefits. Have we gone through our vetting process and know are we set for the next year, our rates? I mean, so we're not going to have some big increase in this fiscal budget.
Not in this fiscal, no.
Okay, so,
Next July is when I
okay.
have those numbers for any increases. We're on the fiscal.
So we're good for, and that's because obviously
Till the end
that's
of
part of that's obviously part of the package. I mean, I'll obviously speak for, from the whole history of the police, and that I've been part of some very heated meetings where residents say they'll pay the extra for it. I think we've been pretty frugal, I would say, in our tax increases where we stay the rate most of the time. And we have had property tax increases, but not like hugely. But then not unfortunately, but when you have a property tax increase, that pie has to go 20 different directions, whether, to city staff, where you actually have, I honestly think this allows us to put, where the mouth is, because I've said for 3 or 4 years, why don't we do some type of, because many cities to fund this, they'll do us, whatever fee to do that, and so to me, maybe it is not all of the 3, but we meet in the middle. I was joking like, well, $5, but I mean, that's 2, but we don't even know that the number on the door too. But I think anything extra, I don't know. I'm in favor of the full $3 increase.
Either way,
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Brad.
You sit to the left.
We'll
Go ahead,
work
Brad.
down. We'll work down the way.
okay. So I don't dispute the need for sure. My concern with this is that we haven't gone through the normal process for a tax increase. And it's doubling this fee, and probably hardly anybody noticed this is on the agenda or has any idea. But if we had done a tax increase, it would be much more published. It'd be much more upfront what we're doing. So I'm in favor of doing the minimum we can do to get by. If this is what we absolutely have to do. I'm not sitting on the police commission and following all these budgets, and I know there's struggles with everything in my business, nobody can hire people. Nobody, it's not just police, it's everything. Nobody can find people to hire. So I think it's a legitimate concern. My other question is, and I think I want to make sure I understand this right. Would we match, we talked about a starting wage with Logan. Are we matching everybody's wages to Logan? Or is it just the starting wage for new hires?
We would,
To-
sorry, Brad.
No, go ahead.
We would match the starting wage for Logan City. And then there was a breakdown. Some people would get a little bit more to bring them up to at least competitive wage. It will not match Logan for our other positions, but it does give us a separation within the wage structure with that dollar amount that's been provided.
So everybody would gain from it some, but,
Yes.
and I hate to use Logan as the example because they're just happen to be the biggest city around and that's what keeps being brought up. So just asking that question.
I think it
They would not
essentially-
match, but
Essentially kicks up everybody by about $2.50 to $3 up the scale. So that we don't end up with compression where someone who happened to sign on with us a year ago at $19 an hour starting wage, then we go out and we hire someone new to fill this spot
Right.
at $22.60, whatever. And suddenly the new person hired is making a bunch more money than the person who signed on with us a year ago. That doesn't fit. So we do have to do something across the board to avoid compression problems and
Sure.
compensation.
And then I had one other question that's just more curiosity. This could go to, and I'm not suggesting we would at all because it's a separate department, but this fee is for fire, EMS and police response, or is it just, maybe I'm not totally understanding what this fee is intended to be.
So the way the fee is defined on paper, it could go to any of these areas. I will share with you my opinion on this, though ultimately this falls straight up under the council's budgetary things. So my opinion is, as usual, worth what you paid for it, which is nothing. My thinking would be in this budget year that we are currently in, we might consider using a small slice of this fee to help offset some of our fire costs and free up a small amount of general fund dollars that would help us to address some of the wage problems we have elsewhere in the city that we can't touch right now through other means of increasing other fees. And then, however, my intent, my recommendation would be that by the end of this year that goes away and any dollars raised from this fee, I would recommend one of two courses of action. One is anything above the $1.50 that it's currently at that we have to have for the radio emergency dispatch fee would be routed directly towards the police department and not towards fire. And any other stuff that we needed to do would have to be addressed in a truth and taxation process next year. The second thought, and actually I lean a little bit this way, but this one's admittedly completely out of my control, though under the control of the council and especially the subsequent council. If we did an increase in this fee, whether it's an increase of $1.50 or $3, I think it would probably be good policy to come back in the next budgetary cycle and do a proper truth and taxation to increase the property taxes to incorporate the costs of the revenue we're generating here, and then drop this fee back to $1.50 just to cover the emergency dispatch fee. But that's a decision that I think is right. I don't want to make a decision on that tonight as a group, because that's a decision that ultimately is going to rest in the hands of a different mayor and possibly a differently composed council.
That's my biggest issue with this, is it seems like it's a workaround for a typical tax increase that we, probably maybe should have looked at more.
if I may
earlier.
share, Nibley is charging $5 a month to their residents for just an EMS fire
Sure.
charge, a fee just like this. in addition to their other fees, the dispatch fee,
That's
those things.
Millville.
I'm sorry, Millville, I
Nibley's-
apologize.
Nibley's is 350.
I apologize.
Couple comments. Mayor, you said something interesting about potentially being able to redirect some of those funds if we were at the higher amount to the general fund. I might be interested in that, but when we first got our committee together for compensation, we were looking not just at police, but the entire city staff, which we have, no disrespect, chief, the same problem, right? Whether it's public works or parks or police, we're in the same predicament. I'm curious, what I don't know is as we raise these water fees, how many homes are going to be affected by that? Because, well, it's only $1.50. I think it's likely that many people are going to see an increase in their water rates too. So we're starting to get pretty significant here without truth and taxation, right? So for that reason alone, I support the 150 unless we can redirect at a higher amount to the general fund to help other staff salaries as well. I do, without question, we're going to have to revisit this, but I've never seen us go up and then bring it back. That's not typical. So I get real nervous about going high now. Then we increase water rates, then we increase these other rates because we're playing catch up across compensation when we do need to worry about others as well. So I would just suggest that unless you can elaborate a little bit on that option for general fund, then I could maybe be convinced to go higher. But I need to understand how that works. And Alan, I'm not understanding how many people are affected by the water rates. How many of our residents fall tier 4 or higher, for example?
I couldn't give you a number. Maybe Jordan can, but it'd be a significant portion. I would say probably less than 50% though of the entire city. Obviously, the commercial will be affected by this.
Yeah.
The single family, you'd say about 50% of those accounts would be affected in the summer months.
So we think at least
significantly.
50% or tier 4 higher. And what about a subdivision like Aspen Meadows? Lower than 50? Okay.
It'd be the summer months too.
What about a subdivision like Aspen Meadows that's on a single meter? They're not affected.
They're multifamily, or sorry, they fall into the other.
They
rate.
they wouldn't see an increase because they fall under the multifamily where Jordan recommended no increase. I would guess it would probably, if it kicks in at tier 4, my guess would be more like 35% to 40% of homes would be affected rather than 50%. And the effect would be really 3 months out of the year, June, July, and August. And you wouldn't see that effect in the other months of the year when when most of us are just operating in a tier 1 or maybe tier 2 range with just indoor water use.
So are we hoping to cover the non-police salary increases that we need to do with just these water rate increases?
So no, that would not be sufficient to cover everything. And I want to be clear, it sounds we're not just saying, well, let's raise water rates and take water revenues and spread them across the city. The only place where someone where increased revenue from water can help a person in their wages, can help cover costs and wages, is if that person is directly working on water. So I want to be really clear because it's illegal for us to take water enterprise fund dollars and use it for anything else. And we are.
Well, that's where our allocations are coming from that we're working on, right? So
if we were to try to, if a portion of this fee was used to help cover fire costs, right now, 100% of our fire contract costs are covered by general fund dollars. And so the thinking would be if we took a portion of an increase, say we went to $2 or $2.50 and said, all right, the $1.50 increase all goes straight to police, but the other 50 cents increase goes to fire, to covering a portion of the fire bill, then that would free up general fund dollars that otherwise would have had to go to covering that. And those general fund dollars can be used for whatever purposes the council deems appropriate. So it's substituting restricted dollars for unrestricted dollars.
So in my mind, that's not the worst approach. And I maybe differ with a little bit of others on the council, but the $3 could be steep. Maybe it's not as significant with water as I thought, but
I could get behind that if we redirected some of that to the general fund. I think that's what we have to do. That's the fair thing to do with the situation we're in. You know, we've got to take care of everybody right now.
Just
Because I think
one-
we're short-staffed everywhere, right? We
Yeah,
have,
just one item right now. The intent though, when we went through this though, if they have the $150, it gets the police to where we discussed in the preliminary meetings. Right now, this is just my opinion. The council can do what they want with this. But I would say give the entire $150 to the police. While the mayor is spot on with how it could be distributed. This year, the immediate need and the thing that we're looking at right now is the need for the police. The fire does come out of the general fund. We can cover that. These other items we're looking at is they're 3 of 20 items that we'll be going over in the next few months. Those can go towards the other items and the other departments throughout the city to help them get to where they need to be and hopefully not burden the residents. I mean, there is a discussion about truth in taxation. I hear it at this in the office. That people, they're not happy about property taxes going up, sewer rates going up. North Logan has a very high sewer rate, and I get to hear it each day. And so thinking about those things, the truth in taxation process is a real thing, a very real thing right now that you need to consider. But I would say, this is just my opinion, that let's take the $150 at a minimum and give it to the police department this year to help them meet those immediate needs right now that are on the table. And then in the future years, it would be good to look at, are there options to work with the fire department? The other thing is this fee actually has a built-in method to increase. As increased doors come in, similar property taxes, we get more of a cost to cover those increased doors each year. So this fee will naturally increase each year to help cover the police.
so are you saying in the next meeting, in the next 2 meetings, we'll have mechanisms in place to help with non-police salaries as well?
Yes, we'll go through a number of
can-
other things.
There
that we're
are a
looking at.
variety of tools in our arsenal besides just a general fund, substituting emergency response fee dollars for general fund dollars that are covering fire costs. Some of those are the water thing will only affect will gives us potential to be able to help some employees who are directly tied to water. But there are a number of other strategies that aren't on our agenda tonight. We can increase some, we've got some issues in the rec department that were with salaries and vacant positions and things of that nature, or potential vacant positions. But we can raise our rec fees by $3 per participant or something like that. And help to cover those needs in that way. There's a variety of things in our arsenal besides these tonight. This is just the first move. And each department is going to need the same kind of careful, thorough attention because we'll talk a little bit more in reports about some things I've been working on with our storm with dealing with green waste in the wake of the storm. And the reality is that our existing staff worked miracles with the time that they had. If we were fully staffed, we wouldn't have had to ask of them what we asked of them. And we might have been able to do more in terms of our response to the public than we already did. If we were fully staffed. And I hate the idea that because our wages are low, we're understaffed in public works such that when a major event like this happens, we can't do as much for our residents as I wish we could do. That's not to say the efforts of our staff were heroic, but these are genuine, not just quality of life issues, but these are health and safety, welfare issues as well. And they need to be addressed, just like our police issues need to be addressed. Just because this one happened to be the first one on the list for this discussion doesn't mean that we're not going to address the other issues. They've got to be taken care of too. So I appreciate that perspective, Buzzy. Craig, did you want to speak to this as well? I think you're position on this fee and what the amount perhaps should look like is shaping up to look like it could be particularly influential.
Well, I've disclosed in previous meetings that my full-time employment is with the fire department. And anytime things that come up with funding for that, I've abstained from the vote, and I'd do the same tonight on this.
I have one quick question on as far as HARPA funds and meeting last year's budget. How short were we? It wasn't like 150,000. I mean, we made budget, but
No, we didn't. We're $380,000 short this year.
okay. And some of that had to do with fire again. So I keep using these examples like we say we have extra, but I remember in the budget discussions, like we're going to have to find some way to make up that 380. So I'm just saying, obviously, I don't consider that extra. I mean, because some of just to make the police budget part of that HARPA 380 can be offset by some of this. Because I bet you of that 380, 50 to 60,000 could have been police of that shortfall. So that's, I mean,
if we were going to earmark it that way, I would have much less of a concern about it. Simply because, but what that would have to mean though is that in terms of actual new dollars available to the police, that they would get the money that they needed to match the wage, get the wages where they need to be. But from there, the additional funds would just go to help covering those existing costs.
I think there's some points that we're missing here. First of all, I want to reiterate that the police commission, I guess virtually unanimously felt like this was the way to go. I want to restate that. Also, it would have been nice for us to understand everything that was going to happen today when we were going through the taxation process and understand the impact of what COVID was going to happen and stimulus money and what was going to happen with employees and hiring. I'm not sure anybody really understood the situation we're going to be in as a business owner. It's ridiculous right now trying to get staff. When we're talking about the police department, just consider for a second, when you're understaffed with the police department, you're asking your officers to work for longer and longer hours in a job that's really, really stressful. And so when you get to hours 9, 10, and 11 or 12, and you then have that call, that's very, very difficult. How do you feel as a manager when you send that person out for that type of a call? And I think that's part of what we have to consider, because that is a reality and a possibility. And so I don't know that I necessarily love the idea of putting that type of stress on our department and then having them be in a potential situation where they might have something like that. With respect to the double fee and truth in taxation, yeah, I agree. It sounds bad when you're going to double the fee. If I go from 1 cent to 2 cents, that's a double. If I'm going from $1.50 to $3, that's a double. If I'm going from $5,000 to $10,000, I'm concerned. If we're going from $100 to $200, I'm concerned. If I'm going from $1.50 to $3 at a household, that's not even a McNugget. I mean, it's just not going to impact, and that's in a monthly fee. And so if we can go all the way and have a better chance of solving this problem, where we have, maybe we end up with some extra money, we make an adjustment at next year when we come back and look at it again. If that in fact is the case, I think in this discussion, it's been interesting to hear that, maybe this potentially could go to fire department too. I'm not proposing that, but we're not exactly sure. There's a lot of things that we don't understand. I'll tell you what we do understand. We're not getting applicants. Our force is not full. I have the same problem in my business. You can't hire. There's not people. We're 19% lower than Logan in our wages. And what happens to an employee when they're at a stressful place and they know they can go make 19% more someplace else? It's not rocket science. This is pretty easy stuff. And the cost, we're not even talking about the cost of rehire here. So we lose a long-term officer or a well-trained officer. It's not just we just go pick another one. There's not one anyway. We're gonna go through the full cost of hiring again to do something like that. So
Bruce, what is the dollar amount that you think we need to be paying them?
I think we ought to follow what the police commission suggested and go all the way and do the extra 3. But what
dollar amount is that?
I don't know
to pay?
I don't know what that is. I don't know that exact number, and I'm not sure we really even understand the full cost of what that's going to be from now until the end of the year. And so if at the end of the year, if the end of this, we ask for this extra little bit of money and we have some extra at the end of the year, and then we have to make some adjustments next year, whether it's this council, a new mayor, or whatever, I think we can manage that, and that's probably going to be okay. I really don't think any citizen, I'm very, very comfortable. I don't think any citizen is going to come to me and say, you know what? I was really upset that you came up with another $1.50. And that was so that we could make sure our police department was fully funded. I just can't fathom it. And so if we were asking for another $300 from people, yeah, maybe that's different. But it's $1.50. It's another $1.50. It's $3. It's just not that much.
I'll tell you what bothers me about it though, is it's just arbitrary. And the police commission, they suggest that we charge a fee of, I mean, are they going to suggest what our tax rate should be so that we can fund the police department? That's not typically the way it works. If they could ask us for $80,000 more, we decide how we get that $80,000. And if we don't need to raise it to $6,
there is an arbitrary portion of it because we know what the number is. This number does not reach what was asked for, right? We know that.
The $1.50?
It doesn't get us there.
Not quite.
Why not?
What other options?
Why not just get us there?
I think that's fair.
And let me just follow that question up with, are we sure that that's even the number? See, that's my problem. I don't think we even really are sure that that's going to be the number. And I think that's the point Roger's making as well. So what is it going to look like by the end of the year? We don't know. And so if we can do something to put us in a position that will better help us to manage this, and it's really not going to impact the city very much, and it's going to do really something that's really going to help the police department and maybe even could help the fire department a little bit too. Why not do that? And then we can come back and next year we'll go through the truth and taxation process. We can eliminate this fee if we want to. We can put it into a tax. Great, we can do all those things. I also don't want higher taxes either. I don't want those things, but I just don't think that this amount of money that we're talking about right here is something that anybody's going to have a problem with. And so when the time comes, I'll be making the motion for the full amount.
And that's my concern about it is nobody's really having the I mean, maybe you're right. Nobody does protest it. But haven't given very good opportunity for anybody to protest it. That's my concern.
I would argue that we kind of have with all these meetings before when we decided we were going to have the police department. And being on the council for, and I'm not bragging, the 10 years, I've heard resident after resident. So this is the opportunity. This is the only time I can think that we can put it where the mouth is. Because anytime you raise the taxes, police get 20,000 of the 60,000 we increase with. And obviously arbitrary when I sit in the 2-3 hour police commission meetings, and I hear that we should have enough money to plan for future repairs on the building. We're not even doing that. We don't even have enough money in the budget to arbitrarily, as that building gets older. So they're cutting and cutting. I mean, we say fully fund the police department. I mean, they're not doing a true budget or even wages or, leave. I mean, so I don't know.
What other options do we have for this funding? I know we have some ARPA funds and different things coming through, and we're potentially directing some of those to a library, to a city offices. I mean, it's hard for me it's hard for me to disconnect that. Could this money just come here and we say, well, I guess we can't do as much on the city offices or something?
So to be honest, if we had to, we're probably getting close to the police department being able to fund the increase themselves just because of the vacant lines that have been sitting empty for so far in the fiscal year. I don't think we're not that close. But if we took the $1.50 and the money that is saved from vacant positions already, you have enough to do the whole thing right now and match the Logan City starting wage and do the accompanying stuff for the existing employees already right there without doing anything else. And then if there's a need for a greater increase beyond that, then that could happen. We could look at bringing ARPA dollars. Maybe I haven't dug into the ARPA rules and restrictions the way I did with CARES, because the ARPA rules and restrictions are still very fluid. The Treasury keeps it kind of like CARES went through multiple rounds of what's permissible and what's not. They started with a very narrow band of permissible uses for ARPA and have been expanding that over time. And so I couldn't tell you for sure right now if it would be legal for us to use ARPA dollars to cover police wage increases.
How many weeks has it been since we've had an applicant?
13.
13 weeks.
Yes, sir.
We don't have time. We need to move forward. We need to give these resources to them and get what we need. We don't have time. We need to take care of this now. 13 weeks is way too long to go without an applicant. And how far down in staff are we?
What dollar?
How far down in staff are we? How far down in staff are we?
Hey, Bruce, you're off topic though. I mean, the fact is, how much dollars do we give them?
Related.
Are we gonna, if we put it up to 3 more, are we gonna just, oh, here's extra money? No, we're trying to allocate enough to do this raise and not more. So I don't understand. I actually struggled with the 450. I hadn't been to the police commission meetings and didn't even exactly know why this was going down. I was never, when I went through all this stuff earlier this week, I was never considering going up to $6. It's not, I get it's not a huge difference to most people, but I'm just failing to see the need to go larger.
Let me make a quick proposal. The temperature is rising both physically and in terms of the tenor of our conversation. And I want to just quickly, and I'm as much responsible for that as anyone here. And I apologize if I've gotten a bit hot. I think we've kind of reached the point where we would very much like to change each other's minds on a subject where our minds are not terribly likely to change. But we probably need to just respectfully call for a vote and determine what a dollar amount is going to be tonight. And see where that's going to be. And I'm going to recommend, if you guys want to continue discussion, I would almost recommend structuring a vote where we said, all right, let's start at $1.50 and see how many people support and keep moving that up until we get to a point where there's no longer 3 votes in support of it. And when we hit that point, that's what the dollar amount's going to be.
This amount requested here, I just need this answered. How close does it get us to Logan's starting wage, the largest police department in the valley? How close does it get us?
If you are comfortable with the police extending
With
some of the
increases that are
surplus
needed.
funds that
Sure.
they've built up from vacant positions
Yep.
now, the $1.50 would allow us to do the match. But if you do that, you need to be prepared to recognize that at the end of this fiscal year, Chief Black's going to come back and say, last year we backfilled some of this with savings from vacant positions. And those savings aren't going to be there next year, and we will have to bring additional dollars to the table. If you want to fund it in perpetuity, not assuming those vacant dollars this year, I think you're going to have to go to somewhere between $2 and $2.50.
Just another quick comment on that. We're going to come back next year, and these numbers that we're talking about right now, I wish they would stay the same for my business too. They're not going to. We're still seeing wage inflation. I don't think we're done. I'm not sure when it's going to be done. I think we're in a new situation. I don't think it's going to go backwards. It wouldn't shock me to find out. By the way, we're talking about Logan like Logan's it. What does Logan look at, Chief? Ogden. What's Ogden's starting wage?
I couldn't tell you Ogden. I haven't been paying attention to Ogden.
So there's
I've been paying
pressures all the
attention
way
to
around is
Valley.
my point. So Logan's trying to chase Ogden because they're losing to Ogden. We're losing to Logan. I get that it's this arms race. I understand, but that doesn't mean that we can't respond. And we have a situation that we need to respond to, I think, right now. So I will make a motion that we change our emergency communications charge from $3 to $6 per month.
I'll
Okay.
second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
No,
Roger.
we sound similar though.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed.
maybe,
If we indicated that these dollars would not be used to support fire, but we were talking about an exclusively police wage such that it disentangled your, well, would that get you to a point where you felt disentangled from conflict of interest? And would feel comfortable voting, or are you going, or do you feel like you need to stay out?
I'm not sure how you can guarantee that.
What's that?
I'm not sure how you can guarantee that.
You probably can't. Okay.
Okay.
All right, in the
The mayor
event
can
of a
break the tie.
2-2 tie, the mayor is required to cast a tie-breaking vote, and my vote is nay. So the motion fails. Is there another motion that would be made for an alternative fee?
I'll maybe make one quick comment because you guys rely on us going to police commission meetings as far as like some arbitrary thing. Chief, if two people asked to go on a week vacation, could you grant that to your officers? And I'm not trying to prove a point here.
No.
How much overtime or a week are you guys currently working?
This last,
Total out 2-week pay period, how much overtime?
okay, we realized this even more so. We had an officer gone and we had one break their foot. So we went down 2. With that officer being gone on vacation and then the officer going out with an injury, we had another officer cancel a vacation, stay home to work shifts, and everybody else had to work. We had office staff that were helping out with crossing guards. We had Lieutenant Olson that was working graveyard, trying to make sure we had everything covered. I was out covering the shifts at Pumpkin Walk as well. That's what we do. We made it work, but it puts a strain on every single officer there. You're 10+ hours a week of overtime.
So I think, you're trying to.
No, I'm
appeal
not
to
trying, no, I'm not
something-
trying to give a
You
fee.
are, Roger. This is,
No.
it's a totally separate topic.
No, but what I'm saying-
We're looking to fund what they're asking
No,
for,
but I'm saying
you're
is
arguing
by-
how we fund
No,
it.
what I'm saying, with the higher wage, you get that other applicant. Because if you're told you can't go on a vacation for 6-7 months, you're gonna, number one, change your
But
career
you're
option.
you're so off topic.
How is
the
that off topic,
topic
Brad?
is where the money, whether we're gonna fund them, we're trying to fund
That's
them.
where,
But you're
No, but what I'm
asking
saying
for
is it-
more, a different method of funding or
But I'm
more
saying that,
funding.
I'm not saying, I don't think the money's gonna be there from you can't use back wages from people not being there to fill it. I don't think you can.
so,
I wouldn't
Roger,
recommend
certainly
that.
not
Roger,
in
question.
perpetuity.
and I'm serious because I need to help me understand this. So if we were to go full $3, my understanding is of $1.50, we're doing what we needed to do. We get them
You
to
don't,
minimum from-
you
I
don't
got-
fully fund, yeah.
we double that. Where does the rest of that funding go? We're just going to bump salaries higher then? Is that the
No,
intent? Is,
I'm
hey, let's
saying-
not go
I'm
22, let's
saying
go
that we're short
24.
$350,000 from HARPA last year.
But that's talking about earmarking it for something different, right? And
Right.
that's a different story. And that's my whole
Yeah.
point. If we have a way to earmark that, or we can cover budget shortfalls or other these, we're gonna have to deal with 50 different shortfalls going
Yeah.
forward, right? Over the
So-
next few months. This is just one of them. And so what I'm hearing is we go 3 and it all goes to police. Great. I wish we could do that. We have 49 other areas that we're short.
Yeah.
So how do we, if we can do that,
I'm just-
and I still don't want to get behind the whole thing that $1.50 doesn't matter to people, because it does. And there's plenty of people here that it matters to, right?
Mhm.
Like we can't, not everybody's in the same financial situation here, but we do have all these shortfalls to cover. $3 could work. I still think it's a lot to be asking people to do, but we need to earmark it. We need to point it in certain directions that aren't just arbitrarily to the police department, not the minimums, right? I get $1.50. We got to do that. There's no doubt. I don't think Bruce, Brad and I are not disagreeing with that, but we got other areas.
I'm going to just send a quick signal that if a motion were made, I can't make one to the effect of a $2 increase in that fee, that I would vote in favor of that.
Does that get us all the way there?
This is about bringing us to competitive levels. This doesn't, as the mayor said earlier, Bruce, I apologize. It doesn't necessarily get us all the way there. I don't know what that answer is going to be. This is a part of a bigger picture of what's going to maybe fix our problem within the police department when it comes to retention and recruitment. And we're doing other things. This is one piece of the puzzle.
I'll just say it one more time. And I feel the council's concerns. I'm gonna disagree with Buzzy in that I don't think $1.50 is that much. As a matter of fact, I lose that probably in my sofa.
You have $3 sitting in front of the first 3 of them right there.
Bruce,
I mean-
I don't mean to interrupt you, but just to answer that previous question, and sorry, continue on with this
Go ahead.
thought. But just to answer that question, $2 gets us to 86,666.
And what's your ask?
88,000 of North Logan.
So yes, it gets us to the wage.
How about if
increase
I make a
that-
motion that we approve the amount that gets us to the full amount that chief is asking for, which might be in excess of $2, but it's probably less than $250.
I would second that and be in favor.
Okay. All right. There is a motion on the table that says we get to, Alan, you said it's 80 what?
86.
But
86.
And I think, Chief, that we're going to have
But
to
how do
revisit it in a
we-
few
We
months
have a
anyway,
motion.
How do
right?
we,
I mean, it's.
it's not
86.
well defined.
666.
Oh, no.
We're-
It's not like-
There's a motion
Can
on
we
the
get-
floor that I think the chair is going to rule that it generates approximately the same amount. We're within $2,000, guys. So the chair rules that it's a motion to increase by $2. Is there an objection to that from the person who made the motion?
No.
And I
Is
would
there
still
an
second.
objection to that from the person who made the second?
Nope.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously.
It's nice to have some fire.
It's-
It's been a while. It's okay. It's okay.
All right,
Now, I gotta ask one question though. Does that approve the other fees?
it does not. That was just the emergency communication response. The stormwater and water usage fees are next. Again, I want to be clear, this is not to increase these fees for general revenue. It is only any revenue generated from these fees would go into the enterprise restricted accounts and would only be used for purposes thus approved, including the administrative allocations we changed earlier that will help us with covering some of our wage needs so that we can fill those. There's going to be some positions where we can't, that's not going to get us. We have some additional ideas on that will be coming before this council in the next couple of meetings. So I would entertain a motion to amend the fee schedule for the additional fees, the stormwater and water usage fees as presented.
I'll make the motion that we approve the master fee schedule for the stormwater fees and the water usage fee tier rates.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed?
I just,
Roger.
Roger that.
That's-
can you guys help me understand why Aspen Meadows is not affected by that?
It's the multifamily. Here, let me
But
go
they're
to-
single family on how does the meter, what's the meter classified as?
Because they're on 1 meter for the whole subdivision, so they're classified as multifamily. So
Okay,
As
there will be no increases for the Aspen Meadows residents.
Great question.
thanks. Aye, in favor. I don't know if I have. a vote.
All right,
Late aye. Thanks.
okay,
I was
that
trying to
was,
think of a reason to get into a debate. Bruce. Couldn't think of anything.
guys, my opinion is that public safety is one of the most important things that we do. And at the moment, it's one of the more contentious things that we work through in the city. I think, we could certainly find diversity of opinions on what the overall spend should be on the police department. And appreciate with the strong feelings that were shared, how much this council as a whole cares about it. And appreciate that what we were able to do here is to be able to do some really good things for retention and for recruitment of officers. It will not be the last piece for police, just like this is not the last piece that will help us to address wages elsewhere in the city. But I know that was a little more intense than average, but it was a helpful discussion. Next up is updates to the North Logan Stormwater Management Plan. Will, are you taking us through that, or Jordan chip in as well? I keep trying to get you out of your seat.
Scared Jordan.
What's that? Thanks, Will.
So our. So
Wait, sorry.
perfect. So this is our stormwater management plan, also called SWIMP. What this essentially outlines is what us as a city, staff, everybody is going to do to stay in compliance with state and EPA regulations and standards. It's pretty straightforward. Much of it's the same. The way where we get most of this from is called an MS4 permit issued to us by the state. And so we follow that pretty closely, and they just recently had an update to the MS4, which is why now we are updating our SWIMP according to that. There's not many major changes to the status quo that has been. I think our big thing that the big thing that the state wanted us to look into is this document kind of covers what we're going to do, and the state wanted us to look more closely into how and when we're going to do it. And so that's most of the updates that you'll see in this. As far as any specifics, I mean, it's quite an extensive document. I don't know if you want, how you want me to best go about going through that for you guys. Page by page.
Can you hit any key changes from where it changes in the policy? for
Yeah,
us?
so Alan, if you keep scrolling down, I think it's section 2.512 or something like that. I'll go up a little bit. Yeah, nope, down. Quit going so fast.
Give him the mouse.
Right about
Laser.
there. Right about there. Go up just a tiny bit. I wish I had the mouse. All right. I can't find it on here, or Alan can't, but it'll be fine. I can explain it pretty well. So the new state standard, I think the biggest part of this is that for new developments, you must retain 80% of rainfall on site. And before, North Logan has been, our standards were 90%. And so now we have updated this to essentially state that we will meet the minimum of 80%. And it's going to be kind of based project on by project. And really kind of look at our design standards and go from there. But we will be meeting that bare minimum of 80%.
So it's actually a relaxation from where the standard had been at 90. I know the tendency has been towards tighter rather than looser stormwater restrictions. Is this going to hold us, 10 years from now, or even 2 years from now, or are we still going to be okay at 80%?
I can't predict what the state will ask from us. I think for many years, the MS4 permit, what we base this off of, never really changed. I think when Alan first had this job, I mean, it was the same MS4 year in and year out. Since I've taken this job, they've updated it once, and now they're already considering another update. So I wouldn't be able to answer that accurately.
That's fair.
One thing to notice, code it put it a minimum of 80%, and then he references the ESPMs for design standard technical manual. So dictate more strict, but that's why you're changing.
Gotcha.
Yes.
And just to add on top of that, unrelated to this, but yes, related, it's not within the swim. With all of our canals, we had to sign agreements with each one of them. And the maximum discharge per acre is either 0.1 CFS or 0.2 CFS per acre. To put that in reference, is like the equivalent of a 4-inch pipe that you can actually discharge per acre on a site, which is very strict, very strict. It goes beyond this. So we're kind of locked into this, but we have our own side standard that we have to enforce because of the agreements we've signed with all of the canal companies, making our standards still a little bit more strict than all of the standards contained within the actual swim itself.
So does that assume all the you say 80%, I'm sure there's some, I don't even know what they're using for the storm rate on it anymore, but we just assume that the other 20%, if we allowed them not do it, would go into the canals.
Essentially, yes.
And so there'd have to be some means for it to get there. And
yeah, and
all
so
that.
those means are just through outfalls. Outfalls are just, they're structured very differently. But the standard one that you'll see is those storm grates on the in the curb and gutter. One of those eventually goes either to a detention, retention, or a canal. And so once it hits one of those, that's that 20% that gets there.
Questions on this? Any additional questions for Will on this? The only, I guess, as I look through the proposed city ordinance updates, is that what we're authorizing? Because there's still
No.
some notes in there, or is it the actual SWIP manual that?
Yeah,
we're
it's just the
Okay.
swim.
Just the swim manual, and then we'll do the ordinance afterwards.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect. So is there a motion to support adoption of the SWIP manual as presented?
I'll move that we adopt the swim manual as presented.
Excellent. Thanks, Bruce. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Craig gets that one.
Craig's back in.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. Thanks, Will. Well, you're not going far, are you? So next is the stormwater control system ordinance.
Yes, so this is, these are ordinances regarding stormwater. We had to update these just because that MS4 was updated for us, and then we had to update the SWIMP. This will just get us, keep us in compliance with not only the SWIMP updates, but also our fees and fines schedule as well. I think as far as major changes, there's not much. I think specifically this one here, 13G 504 is probably our biggest change, and we're just changing the essentially just the time period people have to fix stormwater issues that they have. Usually it's 10 days. We are proposing that it gets changed from 10 days to 24 hours at the discretion of the public works director or anyone who he design or asked to how do you say that word? Designee or whatever.
I appreciate the graduated enforcement approach. When we looked at that earlier, I didn't comment on it, but I think that's very helpful that we don't just show up on site and tell someone they're in violation and they owe us $100 and we'll be back for another 100 tomorrow if you don't fix it. That's very helpful. Other thoughts or questions on this item?
Is the reason for changing it to down to 1 day the risk, or why not give them a little more time than 24 hours?
Are you okay if I give an example of why?
Sure.
So, 10 days ago, we found this resident in our city put about 2 tons of dirt into the road and gutter system, or just right in front of their house. In that 10-day period, it has rained more than it hasn't. All of that washed down into our box. We spent about a half a day at that box, shoveling everything out into our trucks and then having to take our back truck over to our storm drain system and cleaning all of that out. And so this 24-hour period gives us the chance to say, it's raining soon, you need to get this handled. Or it also gives us the chance to be like, it's the middle of July, it's not going to rain. You can have till Friday, you can have till next week, because it gives us the ability to extend that or keep it at that 24-hour window.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Other questions or items on this?
I'm not, I want to make sure I understand going from 10 days to 24 hours, and I understand what you just explained. Is that in every circumstance? Will that, what I'm worried about is the city and the city maybe asks something that isn't reasonable. I know that that's never going to happen, but maybe that happens. Is there a circumstance where a citizen or a contractor might not be able to respond in that amount of time? I just want to make sure it's a reasonable ask.
Yeah, and then that's why I think when we were talking about it, Jordan and I and Alan, we wanted to keep that back end of it open, so that way we can work with that resident. So if it's you, an instance, and you're like, I'm out of town for the next handful of days, we can give you that time.
So how would the appeal work? Because if I just said to you, I don't think I can get it done, you say, sorry, I think you can. 24 hours is it.
It would just be in an open discussion, honest discussion, and saying, and it also kind of depends on how severe whatever the issue is. I mean, if you have a couple, wheelbarrow bucket full right in front of your house, I'm not gonna, or nobody would, say you can't get that done within a day. And if it's 10 ton in front of your house, yeah, you can't take 24 hours. I think it really is just based case by case. Yeah.
So if you're violating your stormwater permit,
Mhm.
then you have 24 hours to clean up. So the contractor can subtract mud out of the road, they're violating their stormwater permit, then you have 24 hours to fix that. And if you're violating, that's it. I mean, they're
Yeah.
straight violation.
It's a violation, so they knew it wasn't supposed to be that way in the first place. Okay,
Yeah.
all right,
We get a lot of just pushing it off that 10 days. And it's just not-
gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, someone who's got a SWIP in place knows that they shouldn't drop a dump truck full of dirt right next to a stormwater
Right.
inlet box by the time that they dump it there. So
I just want to make sure we weren't asking something from a
That's
citizen that
fair.
might be unreasonable.
in the flip side, suppose the mayor for some reason decided to dump, 2 tons of rock into his gutter. Someone should probably have a really harsh conversation with the mayor about that being in violation of stormwater ordinances. They're just hypothetical, strictly hypothetical.
I'll leave that to
Okay.
Jordan.
That's all right. Any other questions?
I do struggle a little bit with the only 24 hours, and when Jordan brings up the mud on the street, not that any contractor wants to do that, but I've been involved in enough projects that you're working and somebody gets out there, and it's not necessarily the contractor who's got the SWIP permit, but somebody drives in there. I've even had construction projects where people come down the street and drive onto the project and onto the road, and it's the weekend. Usually when that happens, are you gonna be up there telling them you got 24 hours to clean this up? It's a little bit of a struggle. It is a little bit of a struggle for me with that concept.
If I may, there are things in place to make sure that in Jordan's instant tracking out onto our roadway doesn't happen. You can have a track out pad, you can designate and fence off areas to make sure people only use that pathway to not bring material onto it.
That's ignorant to construction, because I've been around it my whole life very much, and you cannot stop people. When I was building my house had to get a permit, I had a track out mat and everything, and people came up, intentionally drove off the road and back onto the road and flung mud all over it, and did get complained to about that, and got it cleaned up. But sometimes it's not that easy in 24 hours. So I think we should give them more time unless there's an imminent danger to flooding something or causing an issue, because it gives, once you give that, I mean, who's to say how you utilize it? Yeah, you can extend it longer, but are you going to? So I disagree with the idea that you can contain it. It's very difficult to stop every incident like that.
My opinion is that the discretion is here for our staff to not say, oh, by the way, you got some mud on the road, you got to clean it up tonight or you're in trouble, versus, oh, you just dumped a massive truckload of dirt on the ground and it's going to rain tomorrow. Personally, I'm comfortable with that, but each member of the council obviously is going to need to reach their own comfort level with whether they feel like that's realistic or not, and use that to inform your vote.
Yeah, I feel confident enough that I'll motion that we approve the amendments in Title 13G.
Okay.
Second.
Buzzy makes the motion, Bruce the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
Okay, so it passes 4-1 with Brad Crookston as nay and all others voting aye. Thanks. Okay, next up, thank you, Will, appreciate it. And we have the city's annual performance of a fraud assessment checklist. Alan, are you taking us through that item?
And if Scott needs to help
Scott.
come to the table, but last year, as you remember, we had to adopt a fraud protection plan that we put inside of our city employee handbook. And so that was a requirement this last year. We went through that lengthy process. I mean, it's 40 pages, 50 pages, or more, 60 pages within our employee handbook. And one of the requirements within that fraud plan is a fraud risk assessment that we have to go through with an internal audit committee. And so that's what we've done with Scott, with several staff members. We had to sit down and go over these, and it gives you points for certain things. We have to go over these. And this is part of our annual fraud assessment as part of our annual audit. And so we've gone through this, we checked all the boxes. And we scored fairly well, actually remarkably well within our fraud assessment.
So what category? Oh, we're in the low risk category, it looks like. Oh, no. Yeah, the low risk category.
Yeah,
That's fantastic.
same as last year.
Excellent. I've heard a rumor that if you're in the very low category, they don't believe you. They think you're trying to hide something and you're more likely to get scrutinized. So that's a great place for us to be. And so that's easy. So all you're looking for, I think, is a motion from the council recognizing and adopting this document. Is that correct, Alan?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Bruce, second from Brad. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Can I just ask one quick question, Alan, on that? I mean, you always hear these cities and small entities getting their computer system taken over with all the different hackers. I mean, would you say that our equipment, I mean, I know for a while the police was struggling for good, but talking about the whole fraud and like, I mean, that's a little different, but as far as like infiltration into our systems, have we invested enough in infrastructure to have those firewalls, and are we good? Because I mean, you get nervous when you start, you hear from the city and go, oh, dang, I'm glad that wasn't us, but it brings up the whole discussion. I mean, we could discuss later, but
Buzzy can probably speak to this point, but I do know this last year we signed on with a contractor to come in and cover that. Beforehand, in the history of North Logan, we had nothing for the previous 100 years, 80 years. But, and which didn't make it right. But now we have actually gone the opposite direction where we're actually very aggressive. Our plan it's with Alltech, and they come in and they do assessments. Each employee has to sign an agreement that they will follow a certain protocol. They do monitor us. It is almost annoying sometimes. Like we'll do a training video and we have to pull it up on YouTube and it might just say, sorry, no playing around at work. And so like literally that's the level we're at. It's pretty strict. Now, is it foolproof? That's more for the computer nerds.
You don't want me to comment. I'm on a Google Drive.
It's pretty solid. They're giving us a very high level of security in our contract with Alltech. It's, there's always some level of risk, but the biggest risk with the level of firewall and protections that we have, the biggest risk for us is not that a hacker breaks through the firewall. The biggest risk is that someone opens a spam email from an African prince who just needs their help laundering $1 million for them or something like that. That's why Bruce has that nice car. Dang it, I should have listened. No. But yeah, seriously, clicking on downloading malware, clicking on links, sharing information through phishing schemes. At this point, that's probably where our greater risk is given the technology we have operating behind. But as Alan will attest, they're doing some things for us on that front as well.
I think, I guess on that topic, with the Google Drives, do we have some sort of redundancy with that?
What's the backup? Is it 30 days on Google Drive? Can you restore up to 30 days?
You can store up to 30 days and we actually back up Google Drive onto our server. So we'll back up.
Because there are, at least the stuff you would know way more than me, but Google Drive's not a particularly great backup.
It's gotten better. I think to Brad's point, they come in and hold those files hostage if you don't have good backup processes. And then you end up paying $700,000 in cryptocurrency to get them back or something like that. So
yeah, once a month it goes onto our server, the entire Google Drive network.
Good. Smart.
We good protection. Good questions to be asking though. There are several cities and counties in Utah that have been hit by ransomware attacks, and we would rather not join that list. So great questions, guys. Next up, updates on the proposed Civic Center. Alan, do you want to talk through this or should I?
You're the best person to talk about this, Mayor.
Okay. So I met along with Lindsay Peterson, our president of the Friends of North Logan Library. We went on a fundraising trip to meet with Wasatch representatives from Wasatch Properties and the Deloy Hanson Family Foundation last week, and I've reached out to each of you individually. And a press release has gone out, though I haven't seen it picked up in the news media quite yet.
It was sent out Friday. The Herald Journal's working on it for this Thursday.
For Thursday, fantastic. But basically, the Hanson Family Foundation, I am blown away at their generosity, given that we went in saying, all right, here's our plan for what we could do if you guys would do a $2 million donation to a city office. And they came back and said, actually, you need some help raising some private dollars for the library expansion and community center portion as well. So we'll donate another $500,000 there to match dollar for dollar any additional private contributions that we raise, which is fantastic. Because that helps us when we go out to do fundraising calls. We can let people know that every dollar they give us will be matched with another dollar on the project by the Hanson Family Foundation. In addition, they agreed to increase the Thorn Endowment allocation from what has been 200, or this year we had a one-time dispensation of $250,000. They've agreed to raise that to $320,000 a year, which means we will trim back a little bit the allocation that the library and that the Friends of the Library take, but they will still be able to receive enough that they can do the summer reading program, the Harry Potter party, and some of the special programming that the Thorn Endowment has supported in the past. But also have sufficient dollars coming out of the Thorn Endowment to cover a $4 million bond at a rate of 1.5% that we intend to apply for at the beginning of the year through the CIB. So basically what that means is that if we can raise another $500,000 in private donations, that gives us the $4 million bond, the $2 million contribution, that gets us to $7 million of contributions to cover, and specifically $5 million to cover the library project, $2 million to cover the city office project. We will need to do some things, as I think I shared with each of you. One, in upcoming council meetings, you will see a revision of the city's parks master plan come up to reflect what we want to do with this site. And that will help us to be able to do some park installations, some grading and site prep work with park impact fees. It will also require us probably to bring some ARPA dollars, as well as some general fund depreciation, which comes out of our capital improvement account, which is exactly the kind of thing those dollars are intended to be used for. But not to toot our own horn too much, every now and then you find someone who will donate to support a library or an arts foundation or something like that. Finding someone who cares enough about our community to solve our city office problem, which is arguably at this point the single biggest capital need in the city, is huge, because otherwise we either wouldn't do it or we'd be raising taxes to do it. And without the generosity of the Hanson Family Foundation, this wouldn't be happening on this timeline. So incredibly appreciative for everyone who helped in that effort. The council, you guys have been helpful as we've reached out and giving some encouragement to look at through a variety of different lenses. And the way this has been reshaped from the library, children's museum, community center concept that didn't address the city office problem was done in part with the feedback of the council in mind, and also consistent with the wishes of the donors. Alan has been hugely helpful, as well as general city office staff that always comes with that, in terms of I know Alan spent weekend time the last couple of weeks on this to pull together the budgets. I want to give a shout out to Design West that donated some time and effort on some cost estimates, as well as some bubble diagram work. And we have a donation to allow them to go through and complete design to programming. Our intent is to release an RFP very, very soon. And then come back and select an architect so that we can get going on the city offices project with design work beginning immediately and a groundbreaking taking place in April or thereabouts, which is fantastic and amazing. I want to thank Lindsay Peterson, who invested a lot of time and effort. You guys may not know, the president of the Friends of the North Logan Library Board has an automatic seat on the Thorn Endowment Board. And so her advocacy was very important for getting the Thorn board and the Thorn folks to support the overall project, and most especially getting that allocation up to the 320,000 that's necessary. Thank James Britch and his staff, who were helpful in talking through library needs and helping us to vision. Spencer has spent plenty, not as though he has a lot of extra time with all the things on his plate, doing design work, and various other city staff have chipped in a variety of different ways. It's been a huge project, and I just can't underscore my appreciation to everyone who's been involved for helping to make this come to pass. I won't live on in this position to move into the office, but I go out of office feeling very, very pleased with what we've been able to achieve to lay the plans to have this ready for the next set of city leaders for the next several generations. To be able to provide better service to our residents.
The Can Community Center has a nice ring to it.
No,
Just saying. I don't know if that's.
I don't have a veto, I guess, but if I did, I veto hard on that. But
the CCC.
Okay. Do you guys have any questions on that? As I spoke with you individually, we went over some of the budget figures that are in the folder here. Happy to talk through that at greater length, either now or later at your pleasure.
I had one comment about the design method. As we go out for an RFP, it appears we plan to go out for everything as far as design all at once. Is that the case, or are we going to phase the design and get a city office designed and then have a bubble concept for the library? And my concern with maybe not doing it that way would be changes as we go along, but
yeah,
I don't know what the plan exactly is.
That's a great question. So we've written the RFP to give us, and we'll continue to do so with the contract, to give us some flexibility there. Because it's a phased project with the city office coming first, while we complete the fundraising effort over the next year to 18 months to have all the dollars in place for the city center. The intent, some of the design, we need to get the grading set right and have ideas of where the buildings need to be positioned generally, well, not generally speaking, very specifically speaking, such that we don't grade out the site, start the city offices and get going on it, and then end up having an incompatibility across the two buildings. So we're writing the RFP as though it is for both projects. However, we're writing into the thing that the city can cancel the contract at any time for any reason. And this is noted in the RFP, such that if we do the city offices and we're unsatisfied, or the funding doesn't materialize in the ways that we planned and thought it would, so we need to go back or things like that, we will not have the firm complete full design on the library renovation and the city center, or the community center, until we actually have the dollars worked out. So we will do full design immediately on the city offices, but we'll go to a very, very low level of design on the community center so as to avoid having to come back and make changes later. Does that?
That
follow?
does make sense. And that's what I'm hoping we're doing. Just, I'm concerned about the funding and the project changing along the way as it materializes. So I would hate to pay for an expensive design and
Gotcha.
and
That makes a
not-
lot of sense.
and want to change it whichever direction we would. Yeah, so. And-
Well said.
And it appears that we're looking to go towards a two well basements. Is that what I gathered you're asking for?
Yeah.
In
there
a
would be
basement
two
sort of
levels
two
in the
level.
city office.
Okay.
So there would be an elevator and, depending on how things come back, I think the level of finish in the, in basement or downstairs, whatever you care to call it, level 0, the level of finish there will depend on the overall, how the overall costs for the rest of the project come back, such that it could be finished out over time if need be. But if the amount of finish we could, all the finish we could put into it was a polished concrete floor and a few cubicles, then that may be where we're at today. But it gives us the square footage in one building project to host the city's administrative needs for 10 to 20 years. 15 to 20 is probably the accurate estimate. Other questions on these projects?
Just so everyone knows the timeline, the RFP is out for design and it will,
Oh, fantastic.
it's due in mid-October for those, mid-November, for those desiring to submit an app, a proposal, sorry.
Excellent.
So I think I did see that, just to maybe double check, I think there was a typo on one of the deadlines date wise. I think it was 2017. Maybe I missed one before and it needs to be changed to 2000.
But it's
21.
probably a copy of the document, the actual
Okay.
document.
Hopefully the actual one's right, but
Yeah, if you could double check that, that'd be great.
I'll try to remember to find it and send it to you.
Perfect.
I do want to make just one comment. Got to sit on a few of these meetings representing the council on the library board. And I do, Mayor, all joking aside, huge credit to you and Lindsay and for the work you guys have done on that. And going into those meetings, I'm sure is no easy feat. And I know, there was even some discussions about the amount, but I just think we ought to, I know you're on your way out and congratulate you for going out this way. So
Thank you, Buzzy. I've never asked anyone for that much money before, and it was scary. But I couldn't be more pleased with the results. I couldn't think of a better way to finish my service there. So,
rumor
thank
is
you,
new
Buzzy.
council chambers too.
That's yep.
That's a curved
We'll
desk
be
is in
able
the
to- You guys will be able to see each other looking
No,
down.
it'll be-
I'm not sure whether I've seen Craig's face in a city council meeting in the last couple of years, but
We'll keep
yeah.
the
there
same
you are.
design.
That's-
I actually
Yeah.
like seeing you. Sorry, Bruce, I just had to.
could be
We'll keep the
the
same heating and cooling system potentially as well.
it could be like they do at the football stadiums, the Bruce Lee, council desk at the city
It's
office.
something that makes
building.
sense, then that's fine.
Throw a bunch of names on.
Sorry,
there, so.
I couldn't.
All right. Thank you, guys. Sorry, that was probably like a 15-minute credit claim on my part, but I appreciate you putting up with that. Alan, do you want to take us through the potential ARPA usage items there?
I can't make a motion, but we were waiting on some updates regarding the ARPA funds. But as you mentioned before, we're still kind of in the flux where we're still waiting for a little bit more guidance. I can't make a motion to move ahead, but we're still waiting on those updates
Council, are you comfortable
the
kicking that item?
state.
Yes.
Okay. Hearing no motion or action as well as, then we'll just postpone that and we'll go on to reports. Linda Young is our treasurer for the library board. Linda, do you have anything you'd like to update the council on? That's my fault. I'm sorry. I can get to work on that. Thank you. Ryan, do you have anything for us? Excellent. Police, chief, lieutenant?
I'll just say thank you for tonight.
hey, you guys, I'm really excited. Not, the sausage making process can be pretty ugly. But your guys' needs are very real. And also I'll just say a huge shout out. I really genuinely appreciate that. Thanks. It's been some work to get here and really appreciate that. Thank you. Spencer? Will? Jordan? Marie? Good grief, I've exhausted all of you guys. Scott?
Just a reminder that all the ballots that I would send out, encourage people to open ballot if they've got. They can still go down to the county and register to vote if they're not registered. And they can do that up until November 2nd.
So if you do run across anybody who hasn't, in your conversations, who hasn't received a ballot, have them contact the county clerk's office. If they're registered, they'll send them a new one. If they're not registered, they can just go down and register and obtain a ballot at that time. Thanks, Scott. Alan?
Just a couple one quick item and then hopefully a medium item. Just an update on items coming up this week. The pumpkin walk, and I did want to thank all of the departments involved in that. That was absolutely incredible for the parks, rec, all of public works, police. They were all instrumental in bringing that to fruition. So thanks to all of those departments in the midst of an audit, water leaks, whatever else is going on this past week. So thanks to everyone involved in that. That was fantastic. We do have the pumpkin toss. That's this Saturday at noon, where the ASME, the mechanical engineering students, will launch the pumpkins with trebuchets. Our staff.
How many teams this year?
I think there's 4. They're putting together 4 teams. It's tough, but they should be good, and they have plenty of good prizes from what not prizes, targets from what I understand. So,
Alan's car.
That's
no, that's been brought up several times, and no, we. Anyway, then the Harry Potter party is this Friday, and then obviously the election items. That was the one thing I wanted to go over, but the other item is kind of just green waste in general. I've had several good conversations with the council regarding these items. A few of the council members, we went over some of the concerns that have been raised, some of the process. I just wanted to go over and maybe, well, be defensive about the history of North Logan, where we've actually provided a spot there's been 3 storms in the past 4 years. There were no storms for the previous 10 years before that. And so the previous two storms, we made locations for green waste, and it was a pain in the butt. We'll just put it out there. I mean, this was awful for the staff to have to go through that for those first two, but it was a good resource for the citizens of the community to be able to do that in those first 2 storms. This last one, as we looked at it, we were basically swamped beyond belief. When I say that, these guys, I would see them and I'd hear them. They came in at 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning to try and start taking care of the snow and the trees. And then I would go over maybe at the pumpkin walk at night, and they'd be there till 10 or 11 at night. So they were doing stuff over 3 or 4 days, very lengthy hours, beyond belief. And so everyone was involved in that. Thanks to everyone who did that. But as we looked through that, and you go down through here, I'll skip over all of that, getting down to these other options for what we can do now today with any help that we can do. We always want to look out for ways that we can help the citizens of the community. If we're not looking for solutions, we should be. But looking through that, what can we do within the resources we have? And what's the best thing we can do with the resources we have today? And then what should we do in the future? We do need to definitively come up with a plan about how we address this. I know the mayor's talked about this with the Solid Waste Advisory Board, and he can give us some updates if he so chooses. But then I can volunteer him. But then the council, we've talked about other options for the future. And so kind of some guidance I wanted to just run past you and get your feedback on is what do we do today and what should we do in the future? One thing that I would recommend right now, despite several rumors about the surrounding cities providing temporary dump sites, and we've seen that, and we've had people kind of complaining, saying, what are they doing? Our city staff has been out actually cleaning up kind of those unsung heroes going out and actually removing several trees that were around power lines, canals, everything else across the community. The surrounding communities are not providing dump sites. One is Logan, but they can haul it off for free at that point, and they've actually had to shut down 2 of their sites. The other communities are not. There are no dump sites, no temporary dump sites in these other communities surrounding us. And so just to put those rumors to rest, so we've talked with them. They actually sent out multiple parlance because they were having problems with residents kind of just creating ad hoc or just their own temporary dump sites. And that's where the rumors came up. But they've sent out parlance saying, please do not do that. Send all of your green waste to Logan Environmental. That creates another problem of a bottleneck of trying to put it all in one spot in Logan City at their Logan Environmental location. One option we talked about is what trailers do we have right now before we put Sanders on trucks? Can we go out and maybe provide some service the next couple of days? Keeping in mind, I don't think anyone is going to be having less than 40 hours this week. I'm sorry. More like 70, 80. I don't know what you're going to be at this week. But that's one option to look at. But that takes care of the issue right now. We can take care of a lot of the issue and put a dent in it. Whereas we've had a ton of volunteers going around the city and the city staff that have already cleaned up a lot. I'd say 80 to 90% of everything that's happened. But there still are streets in the center of town with the older mature trees where we have some issues. We may want to look at that. Then in the future, coming up with a game plan. What do we do when this happens again? What do we do with a windstorm or an early snowstorm where we have this problem? And the mayor's got a few other options there that we need to look at. What do we deploy? What level of, we call it the emergency operations center. We have 3 or 4 tiers of what we deploy, so to speak. The lowest level is just send out communications from the city saying, here's resources, here's how you can take care of things, here's a few city resources, all the way up to we have no communication. We're on radios running around with Red Cross and military cleaning up everything. So I just wanted to bring it before you see what your feelings were, what your thoughts were, because if we are going to do something, we'd have to get the notifications out quickly.
Go ahead, Bruce.
So we had a pretty good conversation about
Yeah.
this, and I really like the idea. And first of all, I want to just say, appreciate all those hours. I mean, you guys get tired. There's a lot to do, and then hey, let's throw a storm on top of all that, and add another 100 hours in a week that you need to do something else. And so, thank you to all the city employees who do extra. That being said, I think there's an opportunity also. I think the timelines are maybe what are in question. If we can get a coordination point to where we could work with volunteer groups, churches, so where we could say, hey, what we talked about is possibly making a dump truck or 2 available in coordination with a service group who's willing to go out and clean up yards. And those 2 things happen together where the driver shows up, the dump truck's there. The group loads the dump truck up. The city employee doesn't even necessarily need to do that. They're there to drive the truck and take it down to green waste and dump it. But just more coordination, because I think within the community we have organizations and citizens that are willing to do that. And we see it because they go out and do it as soon as it happens, right? They go to work. If we just had a little more coordination with that and they understood the resources available to them, and we had a liaison within the city that they knew that this is a person they were going to call. So, and for example, if I were the person within my group, I would know that I'm going to call the city and I need the dump truck, or I would like the dump truck there, Friday afternoon at 5 or Saturday morning, and you could say yes or no. But that's what's missing. Just thinking about some of the letters we received, it's people who have a vehicle, and yes, it was inconvenient to go down to the green waste, but at least they could go to the green waste. They've got a truck or something in a trailer. That's great. Not everybody has a truck and a trailer, and so they're left to fend for themselves. Not everybody has great resources around them, and so if we can help them with that, that would be nice.
Yeah.
So the title for that communication person is your VOAD coordinator, the Voluntary Organizations Active in Disasters. And
Is there a designated person in the city for that now?
Yes, we actually have the one for the Valley living in North Logan in Mahogany Ridge. It's Bill Tolbert. And he coordinates all of that. But we can reach out to them. We can reach out to individual neighborhoods. We still have the communication. We still have Parlet So yes, we can coordinate those efforts.
Yeah, I don't know if he was activated, in this type of situation, but in the
No.
future, that may be a good option to activate him, step him up as a VOAD coordinator, designate him to start coordinating between all the groups and the city resources and things like that to see those things happen.
That's perfect. He is a fantastic resource too.
He's
Very
really good.
experienced.
I think with a similar issue like this, we should try to, rather than use a lot of city dollars to manage this. I think there's enough volunteers. I know in our neighborhood for 2 days, 2 nights, everybody went out and cleaned up branches, and for the most part, it's cleaned up. And yeah, it was a little bit of a pain, especially going to the dump. It was a pain, but unless we can get these trucks going there and not getting charged for them, if we can load a truck up and run it down there, but if we're going to pay a big fee to do it like they wanted last time, then it becomes a big problem. That's a issue with me with the Logan City whole system that we pay into, is that we can't bring one big truck down, but we also, I don't know how many dollars we can put into this. That said, of all the things people complained to me about, the fact that they couldn't dump their limbs got me plenty of complaints this last week. So from just people talking to in general. And so I think we should try and do something, but I hate to put a ton of money into it.
Yeah, a couple of thoughts that maybe I'll share. I met with the Solid Waste Advisory Board committee earlier today. David Zook appointed me to that board, and we held an emergency meeting because mayors across the valley were expressing concerns about that they were hearing from residents. And Smithfield just locked their gates and said, take it to Logan. Richmond was saying, yep. Richmond's Mayor Young said, yeah, I was helping with he was helping a bunch of neighbors or a ward cleanup effort or something like that. And they just all, he pitched in. He said he drove Richmond to Logan to drop off at the dump 4 or 5 times, and he thought it was great. He had to wait, and most of the people that spoke, I had a couple of people write in and say they had to wait 45 minutes to an hour to get through the dumping process. And on the first day or two before the Logan Environmental opened up a different way to drive through, where people can come in and drop off in a different area. It was too wet to use initially after the storm, but once they opened that up, the wait time has dropped, and the typical wait time most people in that room had experienced was about 10, maybe 15 minutes to drop off, which I think in the larger, I understand the perspective as a resident where the branch fell off of my tree, several of my trees, and I wanted to just stick it in the back of my van, drive to Elkridge and drop it off and be done with it in about 15 minutes. When we're talking about an emergency situation though, I don't know that it's fair to think that it's going to be quite that easy or quite that convenient for everyone to address that. And from some of the people in the room, they said, hey, we just had this massive catastrophe, but all we had to do was drive it to Logan and drop it off, and there was a place for us to put it, and that was great. So some of the discussion in that room said, well, we need a north site, a central site, and a south site. And they were talking about saying in future emergencies of this nature, that there would be a designated place in the north end, potentially at the North Valley landfill just out of Clarkston. At the old Logan landfill at the Logan Environmental, and then see if the South can come up with something as well, and that those would be the sites and everybody should just go take it there. And so that's the solution that's trending through the county, and I think the direction that the county and Logan Environmental are likely to support and provide. The decision that this council has to make is what is the level of emergency service that we want to provide. If we want to provide more than what is provided in other areas around the county, then we have to have a place where we can tell people that they can put stuff, and we're going to have a way to pick up, load, and transport whatever we collect there to somewhere else. And we're going to have to figure out a way that we can compensate the people who spend 70-hour weeks for doing that when a time comes up that there is an emergency situation. And I'm actually find myself in favor of being willing to do more, but we need to, if we want to offer more service than we can, given that we use, and the cost is the trade-off. We could decide we're not going to have a BMX track anymore. I'm strongly opposed to that, incidentally. But if we did that, we'd have a place to dump limbs, but we'd have a big empty lot just sitting there. And so figuring out what the trade-offs are and what we need to have and do to have things in place for the next storm event. If we want a higher level of service beyond telling people to take things to Logan, to another site that might be more than 5 minutes from their house. It might be up to 15 minutes from their house. Then we have to plan to be able to do that for the next go round.
Well, again, I think the issue is labor and time. And I really don't think the costs need to be unbearable. I agree with Brad. We shouldn't be spending a lot of extra money. I'm just not sure that is the case. We wouldn't necessarily need to do that. I think our opportunity here, our learning opportunity here is let's get better at our communication and coordination with our volunteer groups. Let's make sure that they understand who the person is to contact and get that done. And then let's communicate, hey, we're not coming this afternoon. It might sit there for 3 weeks, because here's the schedule for when we can do it. We have 1 truck or 2 trucks, wherever we're going to commit. And then we work our way through and solve the problem that way. And I don't think it needs to be, I don't think we need to create a land space to drop all the stuff and that we need to commit all our city people to be Johnny on the spot as soon as we have a problem. I just don't think I don't think we need to do that. But we do need to, we have an opportunity to have a better city, have people live better lives in better circumstances, probably with not that much cost, just by encouraging the volunteer efforts that's already there.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. By the way, thanks for spending a lot of time always separating fact for fiction for a lot of us when these emails come in. But I totally agree with Brad and Bruce, and I think there's an opportunity to probably bring the community together to handle some of this stuff a little bit more efficiently in the future. Doesn't happen that often, so it's understandable why we probably haven't done a lot of that. I want to just address the current situation is I mean, I drove around today. I don't see a huge demand at this point. So I'm not sure that it's worth asking city staff to go back out at this, and add more hours to what's already been a crazy week for them.
We'll look at that. It's 3 or 4 streets in the middle of town that are still pretty bad. The rest of it is just amazing, all of the efforts that went into that to clean that up around the community.
So do you have any idea of how many hours we would have to commit to ask the staff to go do that this weekend or this
We were
evening?
just looking at maybe just the next 2 days, if there's an hour here and an hour there, having people come out, maybe load it on the trailer and haul it down.
Can we reach out to these neighborhoods and say, are you willing to put a group together and help us get this taken care of? Because I'm guessing if we got 5 to 15 guys in a truck, there's not that much work to do. But if it's just our staff, then there is a lot of work to do. And so I'm just not, maybe this is the opportunity right now.
I like the idea of providing, facilitating ways to help people to help themselves. So like you said earlier, they don't have the truck or the trailer. We say, great, we'll have someone drop off a city truck or a city trailer at this location at this time. And if you need help getting your green waste away, we will help you. All you have to do is put your green waste in this truck or on this trailer, and it will be here this day at this time. If you want our help in getting it away, come then and get it taken care
And
of.
don't overfill it.
So what does that cost the city though? Is Logan going to charge for that?
No
drop off. Okay, that was the big
The
question.
commitment I was able to secure from Isa, the Logan Environmental Director today, was that if we can get it to their site, they will not charge anything extra from us. They said if we're bringing it in large quantities, they want us to wait 3 weeks. So if, for example, Paradise did, they weren't in Allen's comparables because they're much smaller than we are and they're on the complete opposite side of the valley. They're not, the Mayor Little isn't the first person. He's a great mayor, by the way, and Paradise is a great town, but he's not the first phone call that we typically make when we're trying to assess what's going on in comparable cities. But they've got a pile. They've got a pretty sizable pile for their community and especially for their resources their community has available to them. And so Paradise is going to wait for 3 weeks. And then after 3 weeks goes by, they may ask for some help from some other cities and from the county to come out and provide some assistance and in moving it. But if you're just doing a truckload here or a trailer there, then they can take it now. And we can go there. We can help to do this. So
one general comment I would just quickly say is that I know Providence City contracted with the guy that I use for my tree trimming, and they're spending thousands and thousands of dollars. And it takes specialized equipment, but he has a grapple on the top that lifts up. And I think sometimes when you say pile this here, people abuse it because they don't have a chainsaw. So they take 5 guys and they bring a tree onto the street. And then we throw out backs and have workers' comp. So I agree with planning, but I think Logan City, where they say people can just pile it 2 times a year, people abuse it. So if you give a little, they'll take a lot. So everybody doesn't want more taxes and they don't want Big Brother doing it. Then I won't be Big Brother. I mean, if you're down power lines and safety, great. But we pay into Logan. We have a free source there and it's 3 miles away. And if you have to wait, cry me a river and build me a bridge.
The only thing I would mention is when we do open up or have opened up to dump in North Logan, I think there's a significant amount that potentially maybe comes from neighboring cities.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think it's almost not an option to have an open dump site because if Hyde Park doesn't have one,
then we get Hyde Park and Logan and Smithfield
Right.
that stop on say, well, great, let's just drop it at Elk Ridge. We don't have to go all the way to.
and I don't blame them for that. I'm just saying.
No, I would do the same thing.
That's why one of the reasons we can't afford to do it for our citizens.
The issue I think needs to I think one thing for us to consider in the future is whether we are better off to say, all right, we'll be in this neighborhood with some trucks today, come throw your branches on if you want some help. And then we don't even have to think about a drop site. And that may actually be the better route to, certainly in the context we're in now, that looks to be the better route to go, because we don't have to worry about getting people to take it to one place and then having us come back, pick it all up all over again and take it to yet another place. So yeah, there's definitely some value to avoiding the drop site.
I do feel that if it's in the park strip, some of the place that we own, that we do have some responsibility. And I like those ideas. I know, but some help there. I mean, I do have a big branch, but I think service is where you fix it.
One overarching lesson for me in this, when there is a significant event that has repercussions for our residents, they are going to look to the city to do stuff for them. They're going to look to us for support, and we want to be prepared however we can be to do that. However, and I support wholeheartedly doing that, and I'm grateful for the things we have been able to do, not only in this storm, but in several before. We have to think very carefully about the issues and the burdens that places on the city's employees. If we have an emergency twice a year, we can't keep doing this to our people, and we have to staff up in some way, or figure out how to marshal the volunteers better for these things, or something of that nature. But as important as it is for us to serve our community, and we need to be able to do that, we also need to make sure we're taking care of our guys that are the crews that are actually out there providing this service as well.
So just one housekeeping item before we close up on this. Are you going to respond to Glenna Peterson? I don't know that anybody ever did. I know we did respond to one person, or do we need to send out an official, here's our stance, or are you not on that one? Craig,
No.
Roger, Damon?
I haven't seen that one. If you
Oh, yeah.
forward it,
Never mind. David, you're on it.
I am.
Yep.
Who is it?
Lena Peterson. Yeah, so we responded to that one. Mayor responded to that one yesterday, but this is a different one. Yeah, that one got responded to.
I
Okay.
don't know. I only received
I'll
one.
look out for it to you.
Yeah, I'm not seeing a Peterson in my recent emails, but
I'll forward it to you.
I sent her an email, but not about, well, about what we talked
Yeah.
about, but we hadn't talked yet.
I responded that we were going to talk about it tonight. Yeah, I didn't.
Okay.
So I'll send it to you
but
both.
Yeah, we can formulate an update, but the gist is, I think we can send out some crews. I trust staff is going to do a better job than we could do of saying which neighborhood, which day, which time, and figuring out what size bites we can take on this. So I think we probably can hit, especially starting with a few targeted neighborhoods, and then see what we can do over this week. I think I don't know that we're going to get a lot of progress on Thursday and Friday, but as we get into next week and we're in a more post pumpkin walkie sort of world, I think we may have some possibilities to do something. All right. Al, that was it for Alan's report. That was an epic report item, but it was reporting. Craig, do you have anything to report on?
The only thing I was gonna ask is back with the storm, we had in 24 hours, we had 98 calls that the fire department responded to. And obviously, most of them were electrical issues, but 3 of those were structure fires that we had within that same 24 hours. So it was
Wow.
busy.
That's intense. Thank you for mentioning that. Buzzy?
Only item I have, I saw you on KSL. Craig,
Yeah.
I forgot to mention that. Craig was
Same
on
day.
KSL for the Smiths fire.
Same day.
Yeah.
It was a long day.
I don't have anything to add. Thanks.
Brad?
It's getting late. I did want to bring up one thing and just put a plug in people's ears and hopefully would not discuss it tonight, but I wonder if we should look at Damon's obviously decided not to run for mayor. And I wonder if it'd be a good time to look at the salary for the mayor. I think it's a little undersalaried for what the mayor does in North Logan City. So I just put that plug in. It would be convenient to not do that when somebody's increasing their own salary. So anyways.
Thank you, Brad. I actually think that it might be worth doing a little bit of exploration on that. I'd love to, have maybe even some conversations about city council as well, but it is good timing. Nobody's voting for an increase for me. I'm not trying to line my own pockets, and I think you're right, Brad, that the timing is best in that situation, and I think it's something worth looking at.
And as far as the city council, we could look at that, but we could put in a fraction of the time that the mayor, and I'm okay with, that amount of somewhat donated time. But anyways.
Just one thought, we could wrap it into the compensation that we're looking at right now, because it's an easy thought, just wrapping it in and including that. And I agree, we need to look at those options. And the other option we've talked about is the awkwardness of the city council and the mayor voting themselves a raise. And so what we could do is build in more of an automated process where each year they're updated. If the staff are updated at a certain level, then the city council and the mayor would be updated at a similar level at that point. You wouldn't have to sit there and say, I would love a massive increase. And it would be very nominal. I hate to say that. Your percentages on $100 going up a tiny amount are very minimal. I'm sorry, but that's really what it is. The mayor, though, yes, we need to look into that.
Yeah, I guess my goal with it would be to give the mayor more flexibility to spend more time doing their job without sacrificing their own income. That would be my thinking.
Yeah, I think it would be worth taking a look at a couple of items, maybe looking at some comparables and seeing if the range is in the right place where it should be. The position is, and I think for the foreseeable future will be a position, it's called public service for a reason, but coming off of a couple of weeks where maybe I shouldn't admit this in a public meeting, but I've spent more time being a mayor than I've spent being a political scientist. It would be, there would be some value in doing that. So, thank you, Brad. Bruce?
I just want to say thanks as well for what was done with our donor in this plan, which I think is wonderful and excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce.
I recommend we take the fee to 225 and fund the mayor's raise in city council.
You guys,
Oh.
I was expecting something a little snarkier than that, Roger.
He's done.
Okay. The last thing, I just wanted to relay as well, a thanks to staff that spent a lot of time and effort over a pumpkin walk, as well as the volunteers. There have been several cities across the state of Utah that have said, that's the coolest event. We should have a pumpkin walk too. And they fire up and they try to run it for a year or maybe two, and then they inevitably flame out and flop. The organic nature of the way it started and the way it's ingrained in the community and the volunteerism behind it is central to the way it works. And so a huge thanks to those volunteers as well. We do have a couple of executive session items to discuss this evening. And I would entertain a motion to convene an executive session to discuss items related to real property and or items pertaining to reasonably imminent litigation.
Motion to saunter.
Okay. The chair rules that that's a motion to begin executive session after a brief recess for the council. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.